What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. We're at it here with a little bit of a video highlighting what it took to get this car ready to go to Hallett Motorsports Park. Right now, besides putting it on the ground, checking that the suspension didn't move, and putting some rear stay cables in place, this car is ready to go. So this will be the last video from inside my parents' garage. After this, we're literally on our way to Hallett Motorsports Park. From there, well, it's going to be trying to keep this thing running strong out of the back of an RV in a trailer. But what have we been doing? Check it out. So to lead off getting the store turned around and ready for Hallett Motorsports Park, we're going to start with getting the oil service started. Now, normally you can just start your oil service, but because I've got a gravity feed dry sump system, just the car sitting, some oil is going to work its way down and into the crankcase. So letting the car run for a little bit allows the scavenging pump to overcome the oil that just drained naturally, fill up the dry sump tank, and from there I can just drain the dry sump tank. Yeah, there's going to be some oil still in the pan and definitely some oil still in the oil cooler circuit, but if I just do my due diligence and service the dry sump tank and do it frequently enough, everything should be all right. So now that we've got the oil out of the dry sump tank, we can go ahead and get the car into the air. Now I'm trying to come up with a better way of doing this because I've got to take off the engine tray and the rear floor, but it's just a little bit wonky. Now one thing I decided to do is, well, disassemble my brake system, mainly because we're going to try a different pad hopefully by the time we get to Hallett, because I think that was part of my braking issue. That, and of course the fact that I've got a separate hat from my hubs allows me to easily pull the rotors and improve how well I can clean the car. Now, one of the things I forgot to do at the race weekend because I was a bit busy was, well, label, date, and mark the sessions on my tires. So I decided to take a little bit of time, do that now before I start forgetting. So with all that done, we can start getting into the scrubbing aspect of cleaning the race car. Now, as you can see, with the hats and the rotors removed, there's really zero obstruction to the uprights and the bearings. So not only can I get this part of the car as clean as possible, it also makes sure that no matter what, if I was developing a leak in the bearing or in the upright, it would be obvious rather than remain hidden under the hub or under the hat. This is one of the really great benefits about having a hub hat separation rather than a combined hub hat that you would see on your typical Pro Mazdas. Now this is also going to sound a little silly, but I hate corrosive chemicals. So 90% of what I'm using to clean is Super Purple, Super Green, or Simple Green, excuse me, and Dawn dishwashing detergent. The only added thing that I will use to clean is Motul C1 chain cleaner. And that is some really powerful stuff when it comes to getting the grime off from the chain lube that will, no matter what, get all over the left side of the engine and the left side of the spar. So I know it's really going to sound silly, but Dawn dishwashing detergent is a great go-to for cleaning your wheels and cleaning bodywork. I'm still amazed at how well it gets bugs and gets tire boogers off of the bodywork, and it always has done an amazing job at killing and just making wheel brake dust just disappear. It's kind of surprising, and obviously you'll always end up with those tire boogers that hit your bodywork. They need something aggressive like SD20 or some other tire mark specific removal degreaser. But gosh, 99% of the time, Dawn dishwashing detergent gets you where you need to go. One of the things that's easy to forget to do but is really important is drying the car. And that's wiping down the bodywork, wiping down the suspension, and blowing the car off to the best of your ability. There's a lot of places that water can just sit in pockets or sit in fasteners or sit in your rod ends or your spherical ball joints. All of the water that sits there is just going to corrode and create problems. But as you can see, a wipe down and a dry down, and this car is back to looking brilliant, just like before I took it to Thunderhill. So clearly, cleaning the car isn't all we need to pay attention to make sure we're ready to go to Hallett. That's why now we get to start checking the hardware. Fortunately, I'm really lucking out not a lot is going to be breaking loose. We've got to check our typical issues, which is the jam nuts for the A-arms, the jam nuts for the push rods. There's a nut that likes to loosen up that holds the upper control arm to the upright here, you'll see on the front end. And then on the rear of the car, one of the biggest problem areas is obviously looking after the diff and the drive flange, but also the bolt that holds the lower control arm to the uprights. I'll always check that with a torque wrench and make sure that there isn't any room or any play. If you start getting play or you start noticing that you can keep retorquing the bolt, threads are stretched, just replace the bolt and replace the nut. And just like that, I've found my first issue. It's going to be a little tough to see, but there's just no way with the cameras and the talent I have to get this on video, but you can see the wetness towards the bottom of the frame. That is oil. Oil coming out of the flange between the two halves that bolt together on the diff. So the diff is coming out. That means the shocks are coming off. The top black portion of my spar needs to come off. We need to pull the drive axles, and we need to pull certain parts of the suspension. Now, I know it doesn't seem like there's a lot of oil that came out, but shockingly enough, in this differential, you only need 5 tablespoons of gear oil. So even the smallest leak or the smallest amount of oil warrants an inspection of the insides of the diff. That, and I just don't want to have a problem with diff bearings or destroying the diff. Sadly, Williams parts, which is the differential I'm using, are really difficult to come by, so I have to look after this differential and just baby the living daylights out of it. Now, I'm a bigger fan of the Williams at this point, mainly because for whatever reason, it seems to do a better job of letting me roll speed in the middle of the corner. I have not been able to figure out how to explain that, but the best way I could is the fact that the Williams is technically an open differential until it starts sensing slippage. That's the point where it starts to, in some way, increase the friction between the two axles or the left and the right of the car, giving you more traction. But enough of me rambling on about Williams diffs. Let's get it out. Let's get the inner tripod cups off of this differential, and let's start tearing it down. Now, the nice thing about the inner cups, they're just snap rings. They come off really easily. But right here, you'll see I'm spinning to check the actual bearings, and I don't like what I see. This bearing had to come off to disassemble the differential, but we end up replacing both the diff bearings just as a precaution. Now, one of the things that's important to remember is cleaning is the most important thing you can do. And the best thing to use for cleaning is gasoline. So that's what I've got right here are these little liter jugs you can get at your Home Depot. Thank you, Billy. Thank you, John. And sure enough, absolutely the best way to clean parts, gasoline in a well-ventilated area. Fortunately, there doesn't seem to be any real damage to the differential, but the oil was definitely dirty, and I didn't get that much oil out of the differential. So we definitely were leaking. This is definitely going to be something I need to fix. And right here, I'm using a little razor blade and a brush, trying to clean the mating surfaces for the differential so we can do a better job of RTVing it and putting it back together. Now, obviously, the differential's drier than it was when I took it apart. So sure enough, she's fighting me going back together and letting all the pieces slide into place and stack together. Finally, I get everything to sit down low enough, and I had to go borrow some measuring cups or measuring tablespoons out of my RV to put the 5 tablespoons of oil into this differential. Now we're going to use some RTV on this edge, just a light coating, but there's definitely making sure that it's just right, not coming over the inside layer, all of that. Then we're going to torque all these little 6 or 8 bolts, can't remember right now, with red Loctite down so we never have to deal with this ever again. So as I mentioned, we've definitely got some concerns about both diff bearings, both the left and the right side. Considering I'm here, considering it's out, we're just going to put another new bearing on. Now,
one of the things I like to do is pack the bearings with more grease than you get from the delivery. You just pull the seal off. That way you can get into it. You can put tons of different grease in there. Honestly, tractor grease will work just fine. The thicker the better, and let them be overfilled. They'll eventually puke themselves happy. Now we can finally get the diff and the new diff bearings back in, hopefully for good, and, well, good at least until we get to the runoffs. For those of you that know stores, you notice that we cut out the upper edge of the two left and right panels for the spar, and that's to allow the diff to slide in and out by just removing the top plate. Now, as you can see, there's a 46 millimeter nut that holds on the drive flange. I'm torquing it down, but of course I've got to back it off a little bit with the gun so I can put in the lock or locating, or we'll just call it the bolt that goes through the nut to make sure that it doesn't back off of the drive flange. Once I get that in with blue Loctite, because the nut itself had red Loctite on it, this should not need any service whatsoever. However, it's still going to get checked on a regular basis. Now, even though we're going to be able to check on a regular basis, one of the things I want to keep track of is making sure that the bolts I just put on aren't loosening up. So I'm marking those with a paint pen. I'll be able to check that from underneath.
So obviously we are always going to clean, we are always going to nut and bolt. Hopefully this is the last time before, just as a precautionary measure for the runoffs, I have to service my differential or the diff bearings. But that was the heavy items we had to get done to get turned around for Hallett Motorsports Park. But we did have a lot of little things that we got done along the way. So these are a couple of those little items we had left to do. So we got some data acquisition upgrades, 4-wheel speed sensors, 4-corner shock pots. We also figured out the issue with the end fences for the rear wing, so those are on. We've got new intake horns. We've got cobalt brakes in the front and the rear to try out, and a lot of other fun stuff. So that's going to wrap up this video. Hopefully I'll get a video put together of how we're packing and how we're getting set up to go to Hallett, but we're really getting under a bit of a time crunch where I think within, what is it, 24, 48, 72 hours? Yeah, 72 hours, I should be on the road, heading to Hallett, ready to race at the Super Tour there. So hopefully I'll get a video. If I don't kill me. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please hit the like button. And if you're interested in seeing more content of my in-car videos and me trying to keep this car running strong while I'm traveling around the country, please subscribe. In the meantime, have a great rest of your evening, and thank you for watching.